Hear these words of a poet. When God created mothers, he had a perfect plan to fill each life with caring from the moment it began. He filled her thoughts with kindness and gave her gentle hands and made a heart so tender that forgives and understands. He gave her endless patience and strength to last for years. He built in lots of laughter and the healing grace of tears. And when the Lord was finished, he said, "That's very, very good." And he placed each child safely in the arms of motherhood. Today we're beginning a new sermon series for the month of May called Wisdom. And we're going to be looking at different passages from the book of Proverbs. And some of you recall that I set out a challenge at the beginning of the month. And if you want to take it up this morning, it's okay. You can jump in where we are. But there are 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. And I said, if you take every day, today's May the 13th, tomorrow is May the 14th, and you take that chapter in Proverbs and read it on a daily basis, you will be surprised at the different ways that God will speak to you. So if you want to join today, tomorrow, with Proverbs 13, Proverbs 14, I would encourage you to do that. But speaking of wisdom, let me say a quick word about our youth that led worship last Sunday. They did an amazing job. And to our seniors, to the 5 seniors that brought messages, they have wisdom beyond their years. And we are proud of them, we're thankful for them, and we hope that they know how much we love them and how much we support them as they move on to life's next chapter. Today is also Mother's Day, as we have already said. And so we are honoring and lifting up our mothers and our grandmothers, and in many cases, we are remembering our mothers if they have moved on from this world. Back in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson signed a joint congressional resolution that proclaimed the American mother as the country's greatest source of strength and inspiration. And so every May, we set aside the second Sunday to honor and to appreciate our mothers. Mothers who truly accept the great responsibility and meaning of motherhood make a lasting difference that is far greater than anything we could ever measure. Or, as Luke Bryan sings in his song, "I believe most people are good and most mamas ought to qualify for sainthood." Or, as Dierks Bentley sings in his song, "She gives me faith, she gives me grace, she gives me hope, she gives me strength, she gives me love, love without end. Thank God for this woman, amen." Farrell and I tried to get Dierks to come and sing that this morning, but he's busy, but I wanted to at least share the words with you. All of these words are appropriate on this Mother's Day. The book of Proverbs is attributed to King Solomon, the son of King David. Solomon was known for his wisdom. He was very wise. Proverbs is part of the wisdom literature found in the Old Testament, along with Job, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Proverbs is made up of wise sayings for how to live your life. And these have been studied and applied for years and throughout the ages. In the very first chapter of the book of Proverbs, it says this, laying out the map for the whole book: for learning about wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for gaining instruction in wise dealings, righteousness, justice, and equity, to teach shrewdness to the simple, knowledge and prudence to the young. Let the wise also hear and gain in learning, and the discerning acquire skill. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now today, we're actually going to begin at the very end of Proverbs, and Farrell read a good portion of Proverbs 31, where Solomon describes the capable wife with these words: "Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She takes care of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is in vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." I think that the best gift that a mother can give her children, in addition to unconditional love, is the gift of faith, a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, a belief that no matter what life brings, we can get through it with God's help, a belief that the ways and teachings of Jesus, love, forgiveness, service, and compassion, are exactly what our world needs the most. It's never been easy to be a mom, but I think today the pressure of being a mom is perhaps as high as it has ever been. Why do I say that? Well, many women work in addition to being mothers, and for those who stay at home, trust me, they are working every hour of every day with their children. I made a comment a few weeks ago that at this church we want to do everything that we can to support families, because I think that having a job and raising children and keeping a marriage alive and finding time to exercise and to nurture your soul is a very difficult challenge. And all the moms who juggle all of these things on a regular basis are to be commended and supported and thanked. Glennon Doyle Melton wrote a book called Carry On Warrior that was a popular book among mothers, and she says this: life is hard, not because we're doing it wrong, but just because life is hard. Jen Hatmaker, another popular author who's written a couple of books, says this: I don't want my kids safe and comfortable. I want them brave. I don't want to teach them to see danger under every rock, avoiding anything hard or not guaranteed or risky. They're going to encounter a very broken world soon, and if they aren't prepared to wade into difficult territory and contend for the kingdom against obstacles and tragedies and hardships, then they are going to be terrible disciples. Some of the greatest wisdom that we learn in life comes from our mothers. The things that they say, the things that they teach. This week, as with every Mother's Day, I've been thinking a lot about my own mother. She passed away 13 years ago, in 2005, and she missed a lot of things. She missed weddings and graduations and grandchildren. She never got to meet them. But I've been thinking specifically about the many lessons and values that she taught me, and that I would add many of the mothers here this morning teach their children. All of us have learned lessons from our moms that have helped form us and shape us and make us who we are today. So let me share just a few of the values and wisdom that I learned from my mother. The first lesson that she taught me was the lesson of faith. My dad is a minister, as many of you know, and so church was never optional for us. But my mother always showed me the difference between church and faith. You would think that the two go hand in hand, and they should, but sometimes they don't. The church should help us develop our faith, but our faith cannot be dependent upon what happens or doesn't happen at the church. You shouldn't give up on your faith because you have a bad experience in the church. My mom had a strong faith, and she maintained that faith no matter what was happening in the church, because not everything that happens in the church is always good and spiritual. Do you know that? But faith is what matters. And according to the book of Hebrews, faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. My mom taught me that just because you have faith in life, it doesn't mean that everything's going to go your way. Life will still have its disappointments, its setbacks, its ups and its downs, good times, bad times. But faith can sustain us through it all. And faith teaches us that there is nothing that can happen to us in life that we can't get through with God's help. Faith gives us hope. And remember what the Apostle Paul said about hope. He said, suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint. My mom also taught me that strong faith will mean that you actually take the time and energy to put it into practice, primarily through spiritual disciplines. I've got a notebook that I treasure now. It was a retreat, a weekend retreat that she went on called the Road to Emmaus in Memphis. They do a lot of those in Memphis, and she took some notes. And some of these things are very basic, but we need to be reminded of them. She said, here's what God calls us to be. God calls us to be loving. God loves us as we are and not as we should be. And God calls us to be accepting. Accept people where they are on life's journey. We can't control other people and their behaviors. And God calls us to be honest in who we are and in what we say and what we do. We don't need to hide our true selves. God calls us to be open, to not hold back, to be approachable for others. God calls us to be willing to go wherever God may lead us. And God calls us to be available, not too busy. Busyness has become this sign of status in our culture. Not too preoccupied, but present with the people that we love. She also made some notes from that same retreat called The Spiritual Qualities of a Disciple, which include, first, a faith that is always growing. Secondly, serving others in humility. Third, maintaining an undying hope. And fourth, learning to love others the way that God loves us. My mom was a preacher's wife, which quite frankly is a really hard job. Not always fun. But she worked diligently at her faith because she knew that faith is not automatic by any means. We have to be intentional with it. The second piece of wisdom that my mom taught me from a very early stage was the importance of family. And my mother lived for her family. And you've heard me say many times that I think the breakdown of the family is one of the greatest tragedies in our culture today, and it transcends race and it transcends socioeconomic class. The breakdown of the family is not just a reality in poor communities, it's a reality in lots of different communities. Without a healthy family life, and without parents doing their job, kids do not learn right from wrong. They don't learn how to contribute and be a part of society. And then if you combine that with poverty and poor education and a lack of opportunity, that is a brutal combination. My mom took discipline very seriously, and she had high expectations for her children. And when we would get out of line, we would know it. She used to say, I brought you into this world and I'll take you out of it. And we believed her. Proverbs 13 says, those who spare the rod hate their children, but those who love them are diligent to discipline them. My mom was not afraid to discipline us. She read parenting books. She went to lectures. She took that role very seriously because she knew that that was the most important job that she would ever have. Family life makes all the difference. Those who grow up in a healthy family where they are loved and nurtured, they learn to love. They learn to speak the language of love. But those who don't have that must find their own way, and they have to figure out a lot of things on their own, which is not necessarily fair. Parenting is one of the greatest privileges and responsibilities in our culture, and unfortunately, there are many people who do not take that responsibility seriously. And I have friends who would make wonderful parents, who would love to be parents, but they haven't yet been given that opportunity. So whether you have a good or bad family experience, I think you would agree that family life matters and it provides the moral foundation for our lives. So faith, family, the third piece of wisdom that my mom taught me was friendship. She had tons of friends. And just like she lived for her family, she also lived for her friends. She was very social, and if her friends ever needed anything, she was there. She understood that old adage that to have a friend in life, you first have to be a friend. She understood that if you're sitting around wondering why you don't have any friends, you might want to ask yourself, have I made the effort to go and be a friend to anybody else? The book of Ecclesiastes, another book of wisdom, it says this, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up the other, but woe to the one who is alone and falls and does not have another to help. You see, loneliness and social isolation, I believe, have become great challenges in the 21st century. And it's ironic because we have all these devices that are supposed to connect us. But people today, studies have shown, have fewer friends than they have ever had before. But friendships are important. And choosing the right people to be friends with is also very important. Proverbs 13 says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. My mother knew that friends make life worth living because we are social creatures. We're called to care for each other, and she would do anything for her friends. And the quality of the relationships in our lives with family and with friendships, that determines the quality of our lives. Lastly, the fourth and final piece of wisdom, or I would say value, that my mother taught me was the value of fun. My mom was fun. She was the life of the party. She loved happy hour. And I think that happy hour is a good thing. I said that from the pulpit this morning. I have a cousin here in town who's named after my mom. Her name is Melanie Johnson, and she's fun. She's lived up to her namesake. She knows how to have fun. But my mom would come down to Fort Worth when I was in college way too often, and she would visit, for a football game or whatever. My fraternity brothers called her the Miller Lite Queen. And she didn't have a drinking problem, but she just knew how to come have fun. And she loved a good party. She believed that life is to be celebrated. There are too many people who take life way too seriously, and they're not that fun to be around. Where's the joy? Where's the fun? T.S. Eliot said, where's the life we've lost in living? Now, I don't know about you, but I think that life is to be enjoyed and celebrated. I believe what Jesus said when he said, I came that they may have life and have it in all of its fullness, have it in all of its abundance. When we stop enjoying life, we stop living, and we're just going through the motions. When life becomes a burden, when we dread getting out of bed in the morning, when every day it's a hassle and a headache, then something is wrong and it needs to be fixed. My mom taught me at a young age the importance of having fun, and I've never forgotten that. And there's days when I need to be reminded of that. But I've never wanted the ministry to turn me into a stiff, pious, rigid, pessimistic person, because I've seen that happen to too many people. Jesus said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Have fun. Faith, and family, friendship, fun. Those are the basic core values and the wisdom that I learned from my own mother. And so to the mothers and fathers here this morning, I would say, remember that you are shaping the life of your children. You're laying the foundation for the rest of their lives. So don't ever forget that. Now, many gifts are given on Mother's Day. We got up this morning and Clayton walked in and said, Mother's Day, we got to do breakfast in bed. I said, good idea, Clayton. I didn't forget, but maybe I did a little bit. But we gave Megan some presents, and we opened those presents. But one time there was a mother who was asked what she wanted for Mother's Day, and here's how she answered the question. She said, I'd like a pearly ring. No, on second thought, I want to hear my husband say I love you more often. I'd like a new car. No, on second thought, I want a bear hug for my teenage son. I'd love a basket of flowers. No, on second thought, I want a compliment from my grown daughter. How about a bottle of perfume? No, on second thought, I just want my family to get along. A box of candy? No, on second thought, I just want another chance to show my family how much I love them. My mom graduated from the University of Alabama, 1974. And this year, she was born in 53, so you do the math as to how old she would have been. But she was a huge Alabama fan. We drove all over the Southeast watching the Crimson Tide. And so every time they win a national championship, which is often, by the way, Tennessee fans, just putting that out there, I think she's smiling down. But I would echo the words of Bear Bryant, who was a legendary coach at Alabama. He said, "Have you called your mother today? I wish I could call mine." May God bless all the mothers for their wisdom, for everything that they do, and for everything that they are, and for how they teach us and show us the love of God. Amen.